You have not come to Mount Sinai, obviously. We're living thousands of years later. Go ahead.
And that burned with fire, nor to blackness and darkness and tempest, and the sound of a shofar.
That's Mount Sinai and the giving
and
of
the
Torah.
Voice of words.
Yep.
Which voice they that heard begged that the word should not be spoken to them anymore.
Correct.
For they could not endure what was commanded. And
in other words, they knew the way. Hold it. They knew the way, but they could not endure the process. Hello? Am I ministering to anybody? Our forefathers knew the way. Don't tell me they didn't know the way. They knew the way to Mount Zion, but they couldn't endure the process. Go ahead.
For they could not endure what was commanded. And if so much as a beast touched the mountain, it was to be stoned or thrust through with the spear. And so terrible was the sight that Moshe said, I exceedingly fear and quake. But you have come to Har Zion.
Stop. But unlike our forefathers, you are coming to Mount Zion, unlike our forefathers, if you endure checkpoints, death, grain, dying at checkpoints. All the wilderness experiences that you have now and all the potholes that you have now are checkpoints. They're tests. You will either die there or you'll grab to your own will and your own rights when you already told Yeshua you gave him your rights when you signed on the dotted line. That's why these things are happening to you. I don't know what's happening to you personally, but whatever it is, that's why these things are happening.
Okay.
Because you sign on the dotted line. And he's putting you in a pothole to destroy your flesh because your flesh wants to take you in a different direction.
Okay.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
Okay. Amen.
Your flesh, look, can we be honest since we're keeping it real, dude?
Let's keep it real.
Your flesh wants to take you right out of this living room fellowship, right out of the brother's house and go back to church. Or go back to synagogue. Or something more organized. Something with candy apples for the kids. Something with petting zoo. Come on now, your children need a petting zoo.
Hey, last time I was at
Especially grandparents and have grandchildren who want to make sure that your children grow up wholesome and they have every child it's a birthright in the United States of America that every child should have a petting zoo. And we're not going to give you. I mean, you can stick around here. I can assure you that if you stay at Bnei Yeshua Synagogue in Broward County for the next 100 years, you won't see that. You will never live to see a petting zoo. I mean, we're working on eggplant and lasagna. I mean, that enough is a little bit of a task to make that available. That's not a bad dish.
No, it's not, actually. No, it's not.
So we are, according to Ivrim 12:18 through 23, we are going to Mount Zion. That doesn't mean we don't need Torah. It means that we are going to a different mountain that our forefathers didn't make. Our forefathers didn't make their destination. They died. Why did they die? Go to Shemot. Shemot 31:18. They died, but it was a waste of time. It was a wasted death. Yeshua tells us we are the grain that needs to die. We don't want to die in waste. We want to die while we're living.
Amen.
So we can get to the promised land that they never got to. Go ahead. Shemot 31:18.
And he gave to Moshe, when he had made an end of communion with him upon Har Sinai, 2 tablets of testimony, tablets of stone, written
Stop.
with the
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
written with the finger of Elohim.
Stop. He gave Moshe Rabbeinu 2 tablets of stone written with the finger of Elohim containing the 10 mitzvot on 2 tablets. The Bible is history concealed or prophecy revealed. I'll say that again. Everything in the Bible is either prophecy concealed or history and prophecy revealed. Whatever history occurred to our forefathers on their way to Zion, even though they didn't make it, is prophetic of us. The Torah, this is the reason keeping Torah is a waste of time for the unredeemed. People get angry when I say that. That's okay. No problem. You'll be the first person that's ever gotten angry at me. And that's why we don't understand Galatians. That's exactly why we don't understand Galatians. The Torah was given on 2 tablets of stone. Now, if history is actually prophecy concealed, that means the 10 commandments that were on stone symbolized the 2 main parts. We know there's different ventricles, 4 chambers, but we can even simplify that to 2.
2 sides.
The 2 parts of the heart, because the Torah was received with stony hearts. And because they wouldn't die to self, their flesh led them to the Egel HaZahav, the golden calf, and other sins and rebellions against Yahuwah. They died, but they didn't die to live. They died because they were being what?
Fleshy.
Led by the flesh. Amen?
Amen.
So the reason the Torah, or the 10 mitzvot, Wilbur, were given on stone, on 2 tablets of stone, is because Yahuwah was saying, could not Yahuwah have found crepe paper?
Anything could be.
Stone didn't last. Well, we say, well, Rabbi, you wrote it on stone. The stone last. Stone didn't last. Moshe broke the stone. Not very unbreakable. Like the Titanic, right? So why did Yahuwah write the 10 mitzvot on tablets of stone? You ready for the bad news? It was prophetic of our forefathers' hearts.
Yes.
But worse than that,
Amen.
but before you all man, hold your own mans, is symbolic of our hearts.
Wow.
Corazones de piedra. See? The Torah was given on stone to show us that our hearts were not ready to receive it. That's why it was given on stone. Not because it was last. So the stone symbolized the heart of the people, who our forefathers, who received the Torah with stony hearts. Now we're getting to the meat of what I'm reading. It's kind of a message, but I need to read. What are the characteristics of your heart? Notice I didn't say their heart.
Your heart.
Because your flesh wants to use the stoniness of your heart to bring you to somewhere other than the marriage of the Lamb and the consummation with the Lamb. What kind of joy and bliss you're going to have to be married not just to the Lamb, but to consummate an eternal shalom and intimacy with the Lamb? How do we get there? We don't want to trip up in our journey. Go with me to Yochanan Moshe 4:13. And here's where the rubber begins to meet the proverbial road. Yochanan Moshe 4:13. Again, this message, except a grain die.
4:13.
4:13.
Yochanan Moshe 4:13.
Okay.
On this Yom HaShabbat.
Okay.
Except the grain die.
Okay.
Yochanan Moshe 4:13.
Okay.
Read that out loud, please. Benjamin, if you have it.
Page 890. Yes,
Okay.
and he said to them, don't you know this parable? And how then will you know all other parables?
Thank you. If you do not know this parable, and we don't have time to read the whole thing, it's the parable of the sower, is it not?
Huh?
Now read that again, Benjamin.
And he said to them, don't you know this parable?
Don't you understand the parable of the sower?
And how then will you know all other parables?
Because if you don't, you will not know anything Yeshua taught. And you won't know anything about the kingdom. So Mark 4, and the principle of the sower is the key kingdom parable. You must understand this parable to understand all parables, because Yeshua only spoke in parables, and his word was given in parables, and therefore in order to understand all parables you must understand this parable. If you don't understand the parable of the sower, you will not understand how the kingdom works. Which is why if you ask most Christians where they're going, they'll tell you to heaven. That's nice. What about the next 30 years? What's on the agenda? What's on the menu? Ask most Jewish people where they're going. Well, if it's on Hashem. No, but where are you going? What is the purpose? Where are you? I do business. I do business. We're starting a jewelry business. They were gonna make Aliyah, they were gonna die, and Hashem Baruch Hu take us, he'll take us, he won't take us, I don't know if he takes us.